A German Leopard tank being operated by Ukraine's army in the fight against Russia. A German Matador anti-tank system being used by Israel's army in Gaza. And German weapons popping up in the war in Yemen. Germany has always claimed to export arms responsibly, with strict and complicated rules. But that's changing.
I think it was long overdue that Germany changed its policy.
We are in an era of massive rearmament.
The German arms industry is booming, and weapons are ending up in countries all over the world, even ones with questionable human rights records. So has Germany ditched its principles? Made in Germany. German Leopard tanks have been a big help in pushing back Russia's full-scale invasion, according to Ukraine. But they also tell us something about Germany.
Germany is a driving force in NATO, making major contributions to our shared security.
Germany is right in the middle of Europe and the NATO bloc. It's not far from Ukraine and the countries of NATO's eastern flank, the countries closest to Russia. As a response to the threat from Russia, the German arms industry has been ramping up production for Germany's allies. You can see that in the small town of Unterlüss, where the German arms giant Rheinmetall already has a big production site. Now, a new munitions factory has been added there, built at record speed in just 15 months, according to Rheinmetall. It's supposed to produce 350,000 artillery shells a year by 2027, for the German army, for Germany's NATO allies, and for Ukraine. It's part of the EU's goal of being able to provide Ukraine with over 1 million shells per year. Rheinmetall is not state-owned. It's a publicly traded company, just like most of these other German arms producers. Germany is the 5th biggest arms exporter in the world, a growing factor for Germany's economy. Since the war in Ukraine, there's been a lot of talk about Germany getting ready to defend itself.
Die Bundesregierung wird zukünftig alle finanziellen Mittel zur Verfügung stellen, die die Bundeswehr braucht, um konventionell zur stärksten Armee Europas zu werden.
Getting there is also going to require more orders to German arms manufacturers from other countries, says security and defense policy expert Eileen Matle.
On the one hand, you want the German armed forces to be equipped better and also much more quickly. That means, on the other hand, that those arms manufacturers need more orders coming in, which then means that Germany should be ready to relax its arms exports policies quite significantly.
So far, Germany has had some of the strictest rules and regulations on arms exports in the world, because of its history. Right after World War II, the Allies didn't want Germany to have an army, let alone build and export weapons. They didn't want Germany to be able to start a war again. So Germany's past explains today's strict rules. The German government needs to give permission for any arms exports, and there's a lot of treaties and laws it has to follow.
The War Weapons Act, the Foreign Trade Act, regulations on the EU level and on the international level, the Arms Trade Treaty.
This is Simone Wysotsky. She's been researching German arms exports for over 20 years.
We differentiate between war weapons and other weapons.
War weapons, that's things like tanks, fighter jets, warships, and automatic firearms. Rules for those are stricter. Then there are other weapons and military equipment. That includes pistols, hunting rifles, radar and radio equipment, spare parts, and even certain explosives. Not that that list sounds totally harmless either. So who can buy German weapons and military equipment? Let's look at the countries and territories that got approval in 2024. Germany's closest allies can buy them more easily: the EU, NATO states, and several countries considered like-minded. Other countries are considered third states by Germany. They can buy weapons, but they have to jump through more hoops. Let's take the theoretical case of an EU country buying radio equipment from Germany. Here, the Ministry of Economic Affairs would decide. That's easy. But there's a higher decision-making body for the not-so-easy cases, like orders on tanks. Germany's National Security Council, which just got a revamp. The council is made up of the chancellor and relevant ministers. They make their decisions behind closed doors.
This is totally intransparent, and we as a public and as scientists do not get any information about it.
The council makes the final call on all orders for weapons of war, any weapons or military equipment orders from third states, and on special cases like unusually big orders. There's kind of a checklist of factors they consider. Is the country involved in a conflict? Is the country defending itself from an attack, like Ukraine has been? Are there security concerns for Germany? What's the recipient's human rights record? In 2024, around 99% of permit requests were approved, and around 13 billion euros worth of German arms were approved for export. So do all these countries meet Germany's strict criteria?
I would say, to put it in a nutshell, we have plenty of rules and regulations, really plenty of it. So the norms are good, but the practice is bad. Clearly, a lot of arms exports are driven by political interests.
Let's take a look at the Eurofighter Typhoon warplane. It's an example of how Germany is increasingly putting its political interests ahead of established rules and principles. By the way, the plane isn't totally German. It's a European cooperation project with the UK, Spain, and Italy. It's been particularly popular among buyers in the Middle East, like Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And it's been key in the war in Yemen. A Saudi-led and Western-backed coalition, including the United Arab Emirates, has been fighting against the Houthi militia there since 2015. The war and resulting humanitarian crisis have killed an estimated 400,000 civilians.
We clearly had news and reliable information of IHL violations and human rights violations there. And despite this fact, German arms went to Saudi Arabia.
So Saudi Arabia is missing the mark on that German checklist. It took the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Saudi Arabia's consulate in Turkey in 2018 for Germany to impose an arms embargo on Saudi Arabia.
Keine Rüstungsexporte nach Saudi-Arabien. Das sage ich Ihnen ganz ausdrücklich zu.
There's since been confirmation that German weapons and parts sold to Saudi Arabia and the UAE were used in several locations in Yemen. That's what a joint investigation by DW and other media outlets showed. Given all that, you would think Saudi Arabia shouldn't be getting German weapons anymore. But actually, Germany lifted the embargo. Why?
Political interests.
For one, since the 2022 attack on Ukraine, Germany has sought alternatives to Russian oil and gas, especially in the Middle East.
Having access and trying to open up new avenues to resources, including oil, clearly played a huge role after Germany tried to decouple itself from Russia.
Plus, German arms have a lot of buyers in the Middle East. Not all of them with the best human rights record, by the way. So Germany wants oil and money, but it says it also wants stability in a tense region.
Germany has lifted some of its restrictions regarding arms exports to Saudi Arabia, and I think this has to do with how Germany sees Saudi Arabia as a possible stabilizing factor given the war in Gaza.
That's Zain Hussein, a researcher focusing on arms transfers to the Middle East, including from Germany. So why would Germany want to get so involved in stabilizing the Middle East? One key reason: Israel.
Germany has historically been committed to Israel's security.
To understand that, let's get back to the German history we mentioned before. Germany systematically persecuted and murdered Jews in the Holocaust. After World War II, Germany and the newly established State of Israel gradually developed a close relationship, which became a cornerstone of German politics. So history forged those ties, just like it led to those strict arms export rules. Israel's security has remained a key driver in German foreign policy. And that has also meant buying arms from Israel and exporting German weapons to Israel. Between 2019 and 2023, the US delivered 69% of the arms that Israel imported. 30% came from Germany. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas launched a terror attack against Israel. The group killed nearly 1,200 people, took 251 hostages, and broadcast their actions in footage like this.
In diesem Moment gibt es für Deutschland nur einen Platz, den Platz an der Seite Israels. Unsere Solidarität erschöpft sich nicht in Worten.
Germany was already a big arms exporter to Israel before October 7th. After the attack, Germany's exports skyrocketed. Germany said the increase was based on what it views as Israel's right to defend itself, just like for Ukraine. In response to the attack, Israel launched an offensive on Gaza. 2 years later, its army has killed at least 68,000 Palestinians, most of them civilians. In September 2025, a UN investigation found that Israel was committing genocide in Gaza. A genocide case against Israel is also currently ongoing at the International Court of Justice. And right in the middle of all of this,
we see how arms imported, especially from the USA, but also from Germany, have been used in Gaza against civilians.
The Merkava tank has been an important part of Israel's military action across the entire Gaza Strip. The tanks themselves are Israeli, but some of them are powered by diesel engines produced in Germany. The German-made Matador, an anti-tank weapon system, is also being used by the IDF, including here in Khan Yunis. This social media video posted by Israeli soldiers shows the IDF firing it in the city, reportedly at Palestinian homes. After October 7th, Germany sent 3,000 more Matadors. Then there's the German-built Saar 6-class corvettes, warships. They've been part of Israel's sea blockade of Gaza, which has kept out humanitarian aid, including food. And this IDF footage reportedly shows the ships firing on Gaza. But Germany changed course when Israel announced its ground offensive on Gaza City.
Darauf hat es eine Reaktion gegeben, nämlich keine Waffen mehr zu liefern, die diesen Konflikt betreffen.
A massive shift in German policy, right?
It is still a significant political measure as I see it, and I don't think this was meant necessarily to be a far-reaching measure either. This is a limited measure which really applies to arms being used in Gaza.
Because Germany hasn't stopped all exports of military equipment to Israel. it's only put a stop on certain kinds of weaponry and on new approvals. And with the Gaza ceasefire in place, Israel is demanding an end to German restrictions. DW asked the German government about that. They seem to think it's too early for any change.
Für uns gilt, wir werden im Lichte der Entwicklungen im Nahen Osten entscheiden, ob es irgendwas zu verändern gibt oder nicht.
But the big picture here is
the deep cooperation that Israel and Germany have with each other. Germany is interested in long-term defense cooperation with Israel, including current and future imports of arms and technology from Israel.
Remember how Germany is trying to build up its own defenses? Well, they're setting up what's known as a sky shield, using a US-Israeli air defense system. This is decades of close ties we're talking about, and that's not likely to change fully, despite what's been happening in Gaza. So what does all that mean for Germany's arms exports more broadly?
It's questionable the extent to which human rights concerns are really being brought to the fore.
We are in an era of massive rearmament. What we won't see is a more restrictive arms export policy.
Germany definitely is maturing in the sense that that is coming to realize that delivering arms sort of to other countries is part or should be part of a country's security and defense policy.
Germany says its arms exports have always balanced human rights against security interests and foreign policy commitments. But the balance is clearly shifting.